welcome to my video. Today I'm going to be making a wig using 3 bundles and a lace closure. So if you want to see how I made this wig, keep on watching. So I'll be using 3 bundles of Peruvian Natural Wave 16-inch and a closure from Hair Flip Extensions. I'll link that in the description bar below. As well as hair, you'll need needle and thread, T-pins, scissors, a wig cap, mannequin head, and a mannequin holder, which is optional. The mannequin holder is just there to make the mannequin head more sturdy. It allows you to move the mannequin head at different angles without actually having to hold it. So the wig cap I prefer this wig cap over the dome cap because I like the adjustable straps in the back, as well as how thin it is, and when I use bobby pins, I can easily just stick the bobby pins through the wig cap. This is the closure I'll be using. I've already bleached the mat, so it's ready to be sewn down on the wig cap. And I love this closure because I love the thickness of the perimeter. It makes it so much easier to sew down on the wig cap. So the first thing you want to do when preparing to sew down the lace closure is you want to line up the edges with the wig cap. And this is going to be important because later you're going to cut off the excess wig cap that's under the closure, and you want the tracks to be lined up with the closure. So you also want to pin down the back with the T-pins as well as the front. And this is going to be really helpful when sewing it down because you won't have to hold it in place. It'll already be exactly where it needs to be. So the stitching method I'll be using for the closure is the blanket stitch. So you want to take out the T-pin and you want to pull the closure down nice and tight and make sure it's lined up with the edge of the wig cap. And you go through the wig cap and then through the closure underhand to start it off. And then to keep going, you go through the wig cap and through the closure and make a loop through the stitching. And you want to just keep on doing this throughout the entire closure. As I come to the end to one side of the closure, to make a knot on it, I take the needle and I go through the thread maybe 2 to 3 times and pull it tightly to make it a knot. And then I proceed to the next side of the closure and I sew down that side, saving the back of the closure for last. Now that the other side is complete, I finally move on to the back of the closure and I start my stitch there, and I continue to do the blanket stitch throughout the whole back of the closure and end it off using the knot method. Now that you're done sewing down the entire closure, this is what it should look like. It should be nice and tight, the stitching shouldn't be too far apart, and it should be very secure on the wig cap. So we're going to start with our first bundle of hair. So I'm combing it out just to get out all the tangles. So to sew the tracks down, I'm going to use the whip stitch, which is a very simple method of sewing. What I like to do is I like to sew my first track down at the very edge of the back of the wig cap. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the T-pins and I'm securing down both sides of the track. So this is just going to be helpful when it comes to sewing. When starting on a new bundle, you always want to make sure that first stitch goes through the weft of the hair as well as through the wig cap. And this just makes sure that it's very secure on the head. And what I like to do is I like to do the first maybe 1 or 2 stitches through the weft of the hair just to make sure it's very secure at the end. And I also like to knot it maybe once or twice. After you've made sure those first 2 stitches are nice and secure on the wig cap, you can then proceed to do the whip stitch, which you go under the track and through the wig cap. And this just makes it easier on yourself because going through the weft of the hair each and every time is very difficult because the weft of the hair is very thick. So going under it still makes it secure because you have that end track that is very secure on the head. Once I get to the other end, I like to go through the weft just to secure down that edge so I can prepare to fold over. I do not recommend cutting the weft so much because it makes it shed more. So the fold over method is an easy alternative. So you fold it over and you go through the weft just to secure that edge down nice and tightly. So I go through the wefts a couple of times at the edge just to make sure it's not bulky and it's still secure. So after you have folded over and you've gone through the weft a couple of times, you can continue to do the whip stitch all the way across to the other end. Once I've sewn the hair across to the other end, I cut the thread and I also cut the weft of the hair. I do this because right above it is where the adjustable straps go and I do not want the hair to get in the way of that. So I start my next layer above where the adjustable straps go. So to secure that end down, I go through the weft for the first 2 stitches and then I proceed to do the whip stitch straight across. I like to sew close to the edge of the wig cap and kind of bring the stitch up a little bit so when I fold it back over, the next track is not laying directly on top of one another. I don't like to space it out too much, but just enough that it's not too bulky. So this is just showing how underneath that track is where the adjustable straps go and I left the space for it. So I just continue to stitch going back and forth from one edge to another. As you can see, I'm just using my fingertip to space out the tracks. I don't like to leave too much space open in the back because I have a lot of hair to spare because I'm using 3 bundles. If I were using maybe 2 bundles, if I wanted the hair to be thinner, I might use maybe the width of 1 finger or the width of 2, just depending on how thick or how thin I want my hair to be. So from this point on, you just want to continue to do the whip stitch across from side to side, making a U shape or just going straight across, whichever you prefer. And at this point, you want to take it all the way to the edge and you want to sew it down and you want to continue to use the fold over method without cutting your weft. You are less likely to have shedding. So that's a plus. So you just want to keep using the fold over method and make sure that at the end of it you really secure it down so it's not bulky. As I get closer to the track reaching the closure, I like to make sure that it's much more space so that the top lays very flat. As I get closer to the closure, when I sew, I like to take the needle through the actual closure just to make sure that later when we cut off the excess part of the wig cap, just to make sure that the closure has a nice secure foundation. Now that everything is all sewn together, as you can see, this part is extra. It's not needed. It will actually get in the way of the lace closure if you try to put it on. You'll see a black net under. So all you have to do is you cut it off. Make sure not to cut the stitches you did. So it's really helpful if you turn it inside out, because you can see clearly where your stitches are and where exactly you need to cut. The last step is to cut off the excess lace in the front of the closure. What you want to do is you want to put your finger under it just to make sure you can see where you need to cut, and you just cut straight across close to the hairline. You want to make sure the closure is to your preference, so you want to leave as little or as much as you would like. I prefer to cut it very close to the hairline, making sure not to actually cut the hair. So you can go over it just to make sure it's to where you want it to be. So after you cut it off, this is what it should look like. Now that her hair is all done, it is nice and laid, and she is ready to be worn out. So if this video helped you in any way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions. Thank you.